Basketball season right around the corner, and today we talk recruiting.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when every move you make counts, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. My name is Sonny Verma, your host here at Locked On, where I'm continuing to provide you coverage each and every day. Everything you see and hear is absolutely free. So if you do want to support the program, the only thing I ask for in return is if you can hit the like button on this video and make sure you're subscribed. It's still my goal to hit 4,000 subs on YouTube in the coming weeks at the very least. Speaking of in the coming weeks, we're going to have basketball season start essentially like 10 days from now, depending on when you're going to be watching this episode. And so obviously here at Locked On, I understand my audience. And so I know while football season is only halfway through, you guys do crave your basketball content. You guys crave your recruiting content. So today, what I wanted to do was do a mailbag episode originally. That was my goal for Friday, but there was a question that was asked, which I think I can spend a good 6-7 minutes on. So I'm just going to turn that into the first segment. And that is someone asking me, I apologize, I forgot to check in my email what the name was. What do I predict the 2026 basketball recruiting class is going to look like? By the way, fantastic question. It's still a little early, but I think I'd rather give an answer today because I think Jeremy Warner from Illini Inquirer did mention that Lucas Morillo might be in decision mode at this point in the next 48 minutes. So he's a name that's obviously in the targets of the Illini and what they're looking for in 2026. So let's backtrack a little bit. We know Illinois right now has two commitments, guard Ethan Brown and forward Landon Davis. Now, those guys, again, they're ranked, I believe, Landon is ranked 227 in the composite and Ethan Brown 149 in the composite. Again, not exactly what we're used to as Illini fans, but you know what? Maybe we're just looking for different sort of traits now, right? Keaton Wagler and Brandon Lee weren't exactly the super high-rated freshmen either that Illinois is accustomed to, especially after the years of having high guys like Jaden Epps and Kasper Yakushonis and Will Riley. But as I mentioned before, I do think that Illinois is now more so focused on building a well-rounded class. I don't know how many freshmen they're going to necessarily take. I think it's pretty clear to see that Brad Underwood really does value the transfer market and also the overseas market, especially out there in Europe where Illinois continues to build a really strong pipeline. So how many preps is he going to be having on next year's team? I don't think we're ever going to see a team that has 5-6 guys anymore. But that doesn't mean that we might not have 4, which is probably my guess as of today. So let's knock 2 out. Again, we're already discussed Ethan Brown and Landon Davis on the show. I think there's a couple other candidates who I think could be in this class. Let's go ahead and start with Lucas Morillo. Lucas Morillo is a kid who visited UCLA last weekend. He had visited Illinois already a couple weekends before. He's a kid who's had a long-term relationship with Orlando, Antigua. And usually, you know how those tend to go when Orlando is leading a recruit, especially because of his connections overseas. Things tend to go pretty well. Murillo is a 6'6" positionless player. And when I say positionless, I don't mean it in a negative way. You have some scouting services that have him at point guard. You have other scouting services that have him listed as a shooting guard. And you have other scouting services that list him as a small forward. So it's not in a bad way. It's in the sense where he's he does so many things well that depending on his eventual destination, I don't know what position he's going to play. But having said all that, tell me that doesn't sound perfect for a Brad Underwood basketball team. Brad likes to positionless guys. He likes to come up with weird lineups and throw guys out there where just kind of keep the defense on their back heels. And Lucas, I think, is just one of those guys. He's ranked 50 in the national conversation when you talk about the composite. So he's more in line with the type of prospects that Illinois has gotten as of late. Again, he just finished his campus visit with UCLA last weekend. And from the sounds of it, from both Jeremy at Illini Inquirer and the UCLA 24/7 guy, it's going to be down to these two teams. So Lucas is a guy who, quite honestly, might commit in the next 48 hours or so. And if that does happen, you know what to do. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because I will provide a rapid reaction with a quick scouting report immediately after. But Lucas is one of those guys that they're considering pairing with Ethan and Landon. The other guy is also Alex Costanza, which a lot of you guys are familiar with. Alex is a 6'8" wing, ranked number 20 in the composite, and he can be considered a star player, possibly a superstar player, a guy who can headline a class. Now, Illinois was also ahead when it comes to the Costanza recruitment for a very long time. But as it happens in today's day and age of recruiting, the price seems to be going up every single day with Alex. And so when you take a look at the other teams that they're battling against, well, for the most part, they are Big East teams. And if you do the math, when it comes to the Big East, they are still a very good basketball conference. And the big difference between them and the Big Ten is they don't have football. So when it comes to their NIL, they can invest it almost as much as they want onto the basketball side, because they don't have to split between basketball and football. And so usually when the Big East team wants someone, they can absolutely make a very high value offer towards them. Now, will that ultimately sway Alex? We'll see. Again, Orlando's got a very good relationship with Alex as well. And so that one, I think, is kind of more of a, if I had to guess, I have already made the declaration in my Discord. So if you want to know a percentage, be in the Discord. I'll just disclose this one. I think this one's kind of up in the air. Alex values relationship, I think he comes with Illinois and Orlando, Antigua. If he values other things, I'll just put it in that way, he might end up with one of the teams in the Big East. I'll also talk about the two big men that Illinois seem to be going very strongly after. And that is Luigi Suigo, who I've discussed on the show before, and also Sinan Huan, who also visited a couple weeks ago. Now, coincidentally enough, both these battles for the 7+ footers involve Purdue, and I believe Luigi also visited Indiana. Now, I will say Luigi was offered first by Illinois and visited Illinois back in February, I believe it was. So we've been in on this recruitment for a long time. There was a lot of rumors that Luigi would come play here, not necessarily at Illinois, but he would play at a prep school for a year and then basically transition to Champaign the following year. But he's decided to stay back home where he's playing, which is actually a good thing, because the program that he's playing for is run by a contact that Illinois has a very, very good relationship with. The other kid I was talking about is Sinan Huan, who visited about a month ago, I believe. And Orlando Antigua, again, is in charge of this recruitment. Hanan is a 7-footer who blocks a lot of shots, and there's no other way to put it. Like, he is an impactful rim blocker. He's a guy who I can imagine, throwing up lobs to, and clearly has a lot of potential. I'll be honest, I think the way the winds have been blowing recently, Sinan looks like he might be going to Purdue. I think that's his latest visit that he went on. No, he went to Northwestern most recently, and then Duke has all of a sudden entered the conversation with Sinan. Now, how serious that recruitment is, I don't know. But they didn't send John Shire to go talk to Sinan. They sent one of the assistants. John Shire is kind of like the closer. So I think it could just be a feeler outer. Sinan is 7 foot, 225. Ranked 82 in the composite. Luigi, by the way, doesn't have a composite rating yet, so that's why I didn't just forget to mention that. He simply does not have a rating yet. So what do I think the class of 2026 is going to look like? I know there's other guys out there. Dylan Mingo, Cameron Holmes, and other names. But I think if I had to guess right now, on Friday, October 24th, when I'm recording this, what this recruiting class is going to look like, it's going to involve the names I just went over. And so we know we have Landon, we know we have Ethan. I think, there's a reason that Josiah Jervis decided not to visit Illinois last weekend. He was a highly sought after prospect, but I think Illinois ultimately made the decision that if they're going to make a commitment, they may have feedback from Lucas that he wants to make a decision sooner rather than later. And Josiah is going to ask for resources, which again, a lot of high school basketball players do now. And so Illinois, I think, feels like they're in a really good shape with both Alex and Lucas. And so they would rather save those funds for one of those two guys. Now, which one? If I'm going to be honest, if I had to guess, I think Lucas commits to the Illini this weekend. I just think it makes a lot of sense for him, especially for the type of ball player that he is. I'm telling you, he would fit perfectly in a Brad Underwood type of system. So let's go with Ethan Brown, Landon Davis, Lucas Morillo, and one of the bigs. And I just think that the relationship that they've built with Luigi Suigo is going to go a long way. And this is something that they probably feel pretty confident about. And Luigi could be the next center of your Fighting Illini. Let me know which guys you like. What's your ideal class? What's your ideal class? And then maybe also what's your more realistic class? I want to read them all in the comments. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is, why not, David Mirkovic. Just an outstanding performance from a guy who I've been hyping up all offseason long. Now there's debate on whether he should be starting or not. And, is there a chance that Illinois actually upgraded on their power forward spot despite losing the incumbent to a Big Ten rival? So today's spotlighted player is going to be David Mirkovic. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. And welcome back. I know I've been promising a mailbag episode for a while, so I've got about a dozen questions that lined up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to all of them today, but that just means that I can do another one maybe in a week or two. Again, if you have a question that you want to ask, there's several ways to get it to me. talkillini@gmail.com. You can find me at talkillini on your favorite social medias, the Sunny V. This is my personal account. Feel free to reach out to me. I love hearing back from you guys. I genuinely do, because you guys help me make the show better. These questions are from the Discord. By the way, the link should be in the description. That's the Talk Illini Discord is a place where we talk Illini sports all day, every day. So I let them know that I was going to do a mailbag episode, and we had Bright Star Jones mention his question. Do you have concerns about athleticism and rebounding for Illinois with Morez gone and Ty likely out this year? I think it's impossible not to be at least a little worried about the athleticism on this team. You don't really have to worry about the skill. It looks like Illinois brought in some very, very good basketball players. But, with that comes, some sacrifices that you tend to make. And this team really looks no different. When you think of the major players on this basketball team, Tomislav, Zavonimir, David Mirkovic, Andrej Stojakovic, Kylan Boswell, Mihailo Petrovic. Out of those guys, who would you consider being super athletic? Probably none of them. Kylan Boswell and Andrej Stojakovic, I think, can hold their own when it comes to athleticism. But if you're talking about guys who can jump out of a gym, I don't think there's anyone really on the roster this year that is capable of doing that. Now, could that cause trouble against the more athletic teams in the conference or in the country? Sure. But again, all I'm saying is this Illinois team isn't perfect. I think this team has a lot more strengths. Rebounding was definitely a concern of mine coming into this season because we had lost Morez. We had lost Kasparis, who, for his size and for being a guard, was a very good rebounder. Now, those concerns have gone away slightly because of David's emergence, at least. Again, that was against Illinois State big men, so we'll see how that translates over to the big boy table, right? The Power Four and the Big Ten conference slate. But he's shown to be a good rebounder out in Europe where he played, where keep in mind, I mentioned this every now and then. He played for the same team that Tommy did, and David actually had better numbers than Tommy did before he came over here. So, do they start David? And if they do, I think that's where a lot of those rebounding numbers can come from. But sure, if I had to list my order of ranking of concerns, athleticism is probably number one on this team, especially on the defensive side. And then you're going to be talking about rebounding too, because I feel confident Mirkovic can be one of those guys. But who else steps up? This is where if a guy like Ben Humrickhouse can jump up and really, raise his rebounding averages to, you can get 4 or 5 rebounds per game. I think that could greatly benefit what next year's basketball team looks like. Next question from JTW_Illini. Again, all from the Talk Illini Discord. Would Jaxtis be serviceable at all in spot minutes if we really needed it, or is he just a pure practice player skill? Jason's one of those interesting players. I hope you don't have to count on him to play every single game. I think spot minutes, it's probably key, but in the sense where let's just see him for a couple minutes per week. The good thing is he's been practicing in this Underwood system for a while now, and so he understands the offense, but whether he's able to execute on the offense is completely different. I think Jason is simply one of those guys where you're glad he's in the Illini uniform. Maybe eventually he might be able to get a role where he can play 5-10 minutes here for this Illini team, like as an upperclassman. But there's also a path out there where he just ends up following the Brandon Lieb road, where he develops here and then ultimately he wants to be guaranteed more minutes, and then he goes to a program like Illinois State or another Missouri Valley program where he can get more minutes on the court. But I will say I've got nothing bad to say about Jason. He seems to have always understood the vision that Brad Underwood had for him. So it's not like Jason in any sort of way is a disgruntled player or someone you have to worry about the attitude in that locker room. I think he understands his role. He knew it before he signed on here, and everything has pretty much played out to the way that Brad said it would. So Jason's just one of those guys where I hope we don't see him too often. Every now and then in a blowout, sure. If someone gets into foul trouble, that's going to make me a little uneasy. He's serviceable, but you don't want to play more than spot minutes, at least not in this upcoming year. Next question from KMac2242. How deep do we think Brad will play this year with all the vets and 2 freshmen? Could we see 8-9 guys get regular action? Another very interesting question. This is one of those where I caught myself over the last couple of years saying, hey, we've got a super deep team. Brad could realistically play 9-10 guys on this year's team, and it never ends up being the case. Brad, like most good basketball coaches, don't get me wrong, realizes you need 8 guys, maybe 9 guys, and that's just, every time, even if your 9th player is pretty good, he's not going to be better than your 6th player or your 7th player. So try to invest the most amount of minutes to your best players. I know, genius talk right there. So when you think about it, rotation would be Tommy and Z at center. Let's say David Mirkovic and Ben Humrickhouse at the 4. Andre Stojakovic, Jake Davis. So we're already at 6. Okay, Kylan Boswell, Mihaila Petrovic, and Keaton Wagler. Okay, so that's 9 guys right there. Out of those guys, maybe Jake Davis gets the least amount of minutes. I don't see Brandon Lee playing too much. I'd really like him as a prospect, don't get me wrong, and I think he's going to be a very valuable player on the rotation next season. But I do think, despite his really strong showing, which, again, I'm going to reference in a future episode in the exhibition match against Illinois State, I don't know if his game is quite ready yet, like the other freshman in Keaton Wagler. So if I had to guess, the 8-man rotation is probably where I'm going. Jake Davis is one of those kids who, again, I like him. I know the Illini community is kind of 50-50 with him, but it's when he's on the court, I just think good things are being done. Now, where does he play defensively? That's always been his issue, and that's the number one thing I'm going to be paying good attention to this year. Is he able to move his feet better? Now, last year, he was put in situations where he had almost zero chance to succeed. Bigger guys. When our big guys would be in foul trouble, Brad Underwood had poor Jake Davis trying to guard the opposing big superstar. And It never went well. I think if you put Jake in a role where he can play, 5 to 10 minutes, give you good, sound basketball on the court, every team needs a player like Jake Davis on it. Just you'd rather have him play 10 minutes than 25 or 30 minutes. For the last question, let's switch on over to football. And Mark Edwards emailed me. What is the status with Nazir Rankin? Do you think he will decommit? Now, Nazir, I believe, is the highest ranked player in our football recruiting class currently. And those of you who have followed me for a while and my everydayers know that I do have a pretty good eye on this one, eyes and ears on this one. Nazir is just an interesting character. Someone from 24/7 did interview him just this past week, and he did say that other teams are reaching out to him, but I believe he used the disqualifier. As of now, he's still committed to the Illini. It's really hard to say, Mark, and I appreciate the question. Is someone going to decommit or not? Because in this day and age, nobody knows. If you can have a guy recruited for, X amount of years, you play him a lot of minutes their freshman year, and they still decide to transfer out, that just shows me just how fluid this situation is with everybody. Nazir is a kid who a lot of Illini fans and insiders, me included, was pretty confident that he would commit to the Illini, but that didn't stop him from making other visits. And, I do think he and his circle enjoy the process. They like to be wined and dined and, be flirted with. Let's put it in that perspective. But, as of now, I would guess I don't have any cause of concern. Maybe that's a better way to phrase what I'm trying to say. I haven't heard anything recently about him wanting to play elsewhere. But Nazir, like everyone else, I just never know. Like, I don't want to sit here in front of a camera and say I'm 100% sure anybody's going to be suiting up for an Illini uniform nowadays until I see pen to paper. And Nazir in that aspect is no different. Let me know your guys' thoughts. I want to hear, what kind of rotation would you have? Would you go to 8-man? Would you have 9? Would you make it 10 with a guy like Brandon Lee? Did he show you enough? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered. Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. I did David Mirkovic already. I think right now, the other guy I want to give props to is Kylan Boswell. Kylan's a guy who probably could have scored 25 points and really dominated the Illinois State Redbirds this past weekend, but he chose not to because he understands his role. His role in a game like that is to see what kind of weapons he has around him and help build their confidence. And that's exactly what I think he did. When the pressure was on, Kylan came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. Kylan is on a streak. And just like Kylan delivered for the Illini, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stock it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period 11 through 11/18. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I'll tell you what I love about FanDuel is sometimes I want to bet a player prop. Sometimes I want to bet a team total, maybe an over and under. Whatever I want to do, FanDuel will allow me to do it. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. I don't need to remind you that Illinois football has a very big game on Saturday. We play in the afternoon slot against the Washington Huskies, two teams that are not only 5-2, but two teams who absolutely need a victory on Saturday to, have any sort of hope to make the college football playoff. In particular, Illinois, their two losses at this season, while being to the two best teams in the country, a lot of people can't get the 63-10 score out of their brains. And so if Illinois still has aspirations, and Brett Bielema and that coaching staff do, they're going to be focused on the Huskies, but at the same time, they know that the only way for them to get back in that conversation is to not lose another game this year, but also to beat the good teams on your schedule. And some of those good teams you've already beaten. You've beaten Duke, you've beaten USC, and hopefully you need to beat Washington. You take care of those three teams, and then all of a sudden, maybe you have a little bit more credibility if the only two losses you have are the number one, number two teams in the country at the end of the season. But this game won't be easy, especially playing out there in Seattle, where the Huskies simply don't lose. Now, for On 3, I do think I officially submitted a prediction for us to win. I'll be honest with you, I don't really feel very strongly about that. I just think that, I want to have faith in Brett Bielema after bye weeks. And since he's been in Champaign, Brett is 6-1 after the bye. I'm really interested to see whether we tackle the Huskies or not. And that's what I think this game comes down to. If you've made it this far into this episode, I appreciate you guys, but just watch for that. Jonah Coleman, this guy's impossible to bring down. He's really, really difficult. From the tape I was watching from him, he can break tackles. Like, that's a legit skill of his. And we know the frustrations that all of us have had as Illini fans with the inability to tackle for this group of Illini. If that continues to happen on 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, Jonah Coleman, breaks through the line and you miss your first tackle and he gets the first down, then I just don't think I feel very confident that this Illinois team is going to break through, because they're going to have to do everything right on Saturday. Washington's not a great team, but I think they have the potential to be a very good team. And quite honestly, that's probably where I rate the Illini as well. I certainly don't think they're an elite team. I said that in the preseason. They could still be a very good team, but I think more than likely right now they've kind of settled in as a good team. And this is going to be a battle of two goods. In Seattle, where the Washington Huskies just so rarely lose. They lost to Ohio State a couple weeks ago, but before that, I believe they won something like 22 straight. They've got a quarterback, Williams, who's one of the best rushers in the entire conference. I'm interested to see what Aaron Henry does with that. Does he try to keep Williams in front of him? That's what I would do. Don't let him win with his legs. Make him beat you with his arm. And, he can do that. Don't get me wrong. They've got Denzel Boston, he's going to be one of the, highest drafted receivers in an upcoming NFL draft. But, you can't let Washington do everything they do well against you on Saturday. Otherwise, it's going to be a very, very long football game. And that's not what we want. As long as, Aaron Henry can fix this tackling issue and come up with a decent game plan. They've had 2 weeks to do so. I'm also interested to see Barry Lundy Jr. enact the quick pace offense a little faster this time against Washington. Put the pressure on them. The one asset that you have over pretty much the rest of your schedule at this point is that your offense can score on anybody. You've got one of the best offenses in the entire conference. And that includes the Washington Huskies, who have a good offense themselves as well. But make Washington keep up with you. Get to 35 points, get to 40 points, and put the pressure that you score, make Washington feel the pressure to score themselves. If they're able to, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But ultimately, this is a make or break game for both teams this season. It's a game that both teams absolutely need. The loser has to shift their focus over to what the best bowl game that they can get, which again is not a bad thing, especially for a program like Illinois. But right now, 10 wins is still feasible. If you lose this game, then you're looking at maybe 9 wins, but even then you have to win on out. So, as long as Brett Bielema, the coaching staff, and the players keep that 1-0 mentality this week, that's it. That's all that matters. Focus it on week by week. Don't worry about who you're going to play 2-3 weeks from now. Don't worry about 9 wins. Don't worry about 10 wins. Just worry about 1 win, and that's that game on Saturday. Thank you for making Locked On Illini your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Big Ten. Craig Shamon breaks down the most exciting conference in college sports, from rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please, on your way out, make sure you've hit that like button on this video. And if there's any content that you want me to do, find me on your favorite social medias or send me an email at talkalign@gmail.com. I love to hear any feedback from you guys. I'll be live here immediately after that Washington Huskies game for rapid reaction. So again, make sure you're tuned in here. And hey, if we have any breaking news this weekend, wink, wink, just make sure you're tuned into this channel as well, as I'll go live with a rapid reaction. All right, until next time, hope you guys all enjoy your weekend. See you Saturday after the game. ILL. Love you guys.